Hello, everyone. Welcome to the A+ study group for July 2012. I'm James Messer, and today we're going to take your questions and we're going to look at the things you're sending me over the past month, things you've left in my chat room, things you've emailed me directly, things you put on your registration when you registered for this live event, and we'll start answering some of those questions. This particular study group tried to hone and do a couple of different things, so perhaps this will be a little bit different than the previous ones that we've had before. Not too different, of course. After all, we want to be sure we cover the questions that you have that are most important for the things that you want to know about. We do this study group live every month. I try to get about an hour or an hour and a half in. I post the events on professormesser.com/calendar. So if there is a question in your mind of when the next study group might be, I try to keep it updated. I didn't do very well this month, but I hope to keep it updated so you'll know when the next one will be and the next one and that type of thing. The summer is just kind of relaxing, just kind of hang out. I don't have anything special to do. There's, of course, people on vacations and that type of thing. So we've been a little more relaxed than usual this past month or so. But we're back doing our live study group. If you're watching the replay, you're, of course, welcome to join us. We have a chat going on professormesser.com right now. There's a live A+ study group at the bottom of the screen. There is a also chat going on the Justin TV link that we're using this month. And I'm using a different live stream for those of you that are watching that have joined in the past. I'm hoping not to get so many commercial interruptions in here. So we'll see how this goes. It's going to be something different. Make sure everything's working the way we would expect. Let's go and look at some of the things that we have set up for you. We're obviously going to go through this study group, but I'm able to do this study group because of the people that help support the website. And I, of course, offer an offline version of all of the free videos that you can watch online. If you'd like to, you're always online, you're always connected, watch the free videos. They're out there, they're available. Just watching the free videos helps keep the website running. Sounds crazy, but it's the internet and that's the way that it works. If you would like these videos to go offline with you, you can purchase them. I have them available and you can find at professormesser.com/download-A+. You'll be able to learn more about this. So we're going to talk about A+ today. We're going to talk about the 22700 series. For Justin, who's asking in the chat room, is this going to be, which one is this going to be? It's the 700 series, which currently is the only A+ exam you can take. We'll talk about why that's important and use those types of things as well. Now, if you already have your A+ certification and you plan to use the CE credits to the continuing education credits to maintain your certification, you can do that as well. I've got a link here that can get you to the CompTIA website where you can get a certain number. You can get 4 total CEUs. Well, to help along those lines, I suspect a lot of you will not be doing CEUs. You'll simply get the next higher certification, which automatically renews your A+ certification. But it's just something I like to make you aware of as we're going through this. One of the things that I like to do in this study group is get information from you. I like it to be interactive. So if you have a mobile device with a QR code reader, you know that code reader that you never use, here's an opportunity to use it. I've got a QR code right here on the screen that you're able to go to, or you can just type in at a browser because QR codes are too complicated. We can just type in vote.rs, VOT.rs, and use the number 30795, and you can do an interactive poll right now. And the question here is, how long have you been studying for your A+ certification? I want to know as we go through this study group how much you've studied for this. Are you just beginning? Have you been doing this for a while? Be something interesting to see. And if you go out to vote, VOT.rs, using the number 30795, you will get something. I'll see, we're already seeing one of the earlier next questions. Here it is. One of the questions here, and you can start voting, and we'll see your responses on the screen right here. Vote.rs 30795. Now, this helps me as we go through the study group to understand more about what you're looking for in the study group. Sometimes I spend a lot of time talking about some of these topics, some of these very simple, basic, entry-level ideas. But if you've never seen it before, you really would like to know everything you could possibly know about it. So I like to describe in detail some of these things. If we had in the study group everybody that was 9 to 12 months or more, I know there's certain nuances, certain things I could skip over. Now, in most cases, when we do this study group, if you watch some of the others, we usually get somewhere between 0 and 6 months is the majority. And then we have some others there as well. So that's one of the things that I like to do, is be able to see that. And QR codes, for those asking in the chat room, you can use on any mobile device. There are QR code readers for darn near everything these days. Now, if we look at what we have, 10 people already have said less than 3 months of study for the A+. So this is good feedback for me. Another 4, 3 to 6. So the vast majority of the people that are participating in this poll who are watching, because I know there are many, many more that are in the chat and that are online live. So the vast majority, though, somewhere between 0 months and 9 months, somewhere in there, 0 to 6. That's a pretty good idea, I think, of where we can start with some of the things we'd like to do today. And I will absolutely go through this list as we are looking at it and understand more about what we might be able to do with this. The first thing I want to do, though, before we go into talking about questions, is there is an exam update coming. So one of the questions I have, for instance, and this is what prompted this, was a question from Aldo this month that said, are all of the A+ exam questions multiple choice? And that was a good question, because I immediately want to say, yes, they're all multiple choice. In fact, today, if you were to walk into an A+ certification, you would have multiple choice for your A+. If you walk into Network Plus, it would be multiple choice. You walk into Security Plus, multiple choice. All of the exams today are multiple choice. Notice how I said today? Notice how I threw that in there, that little hook? Now, obviously, you're watching this on the replay. You're watching it live, obviously, July 2012. The replay, this is July 2012. This week, I got a little tidbit of information about what's coming with the A+ certification. And this is something that was put live into LinkedIn. And this came from Carol at Denver, the product management CompTIA. Carol Balcom says she was responding to somebody who was talking about the A+, and she said the 801 exam and the 802 exams, which you could go to CompTIA's website right now and download the objectives, you just can't take the exams because, as Carol says, they should launch sometime in October. So a lot of people have been asking me, when are the new exams coming out? When are the new exams coming out? I don't know. I'm not part of CompTIA. I'm not a CompTIA member. I'm completely independent. I hear about it when you hear about it. In fact, people have emailed me when they've seen things posted on the CompTIA website telling me about it. I had no idea. Well, this is great. I have all these people out there that are informing me of those types of things and what's going on. So the question that came up here, and the thing I saw was that the new exams, 801, 802, launching in October. But here was the more interesting part. The objectives are on the website. One important difference in the new exams is that they will contain a few performance-based questions. In other words, through the launch of special software within the exam, you will be put into an environment and will be asked to perform a task. So no longer is this just a simple multiple choice. And I think this is quite a departure from multiple choice. Here's your screen. Here's Windows. Do something. Here's this working environment. Show me how to perform this particular task. So this is going to be one of those times where people who perhaps not quite as informed as they should be have been saying, boy, this is easy. This A+ exam is simple. Well, let's see if it's so simple now. You can't just read through a bunch of text and hope to find the right multiple choice answer and get it out of there. That's fantastic. So we will see now with this new type of examination, or this new type of exam methodology, how things go. And I can't wait to take this. As soon as this comes out, I'm going to take it, and I will report back to all of you what I found going through this piece. It should be very, very interesting. In the chat room, Jeff asked, so should we wait for the 800 series? We're not taking the 700 series yet. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But one of the things that was mentioned here, also, I don't think she mentioned it in this particular response, but there were other responses that Carol put on LinkedIn, is that the 700 series exams will continue to be available through August the 31st, 2013. So you will be able to take the 700 series exam, if we're talking about right now live, for another year and a couple weeks. So you can have a year to take that 700 series. If you're studying for the 700 series, keep studying. 800's not coming out until October sometime, maybe. So you've got plenty of time to take your 700 because it's also going to be offered for another year from today. So no problems there. You're in good shape as long as those things are concerned. I saw that little tidbit. I wanted to make you aware of it. Some pretty interesting things happening along those lines. For those of you that joined us live, we are in the chat room on the Professor Messer website. At the bottom is a live A+ study group chat, and on Justin TV, the chat room there. I am monitoring both of those, and we'll be answering questions as we go through this list. Now, what I wanted to do is sometimes I'll take some of the pieces that I do in my training videos and I'll answer some of the questions that came in. But you can watch the training videos whenever you want. Me reproducing, regurgitating, telling you the things that are already in the training videos are something that you can do at any time. You just watch the video. What I tried to do what I tried to do for this year's A+ study group, this month's A+ study group, is to give you questions that go towards the things you're learning for A+. Oh, in the chat room, thank you. There was a question before I continue on, and we'll come back to this also, that I talked about your A+ certification getting continuing education credits. And I said, a lot of people don't even do the continuing education because they simply take an updated test, a newer, more advanced test like the Network Plus. If you take the Network Plus, it will automatically renew your A+. If you take the Security Plus, it would automatically renew your A+ and your Network Plus. It resets the counter. There is a frequently asked questions file. And if you look for CompTIA certification renewal FAQ, there's a PDF file that lists out the hierarchy of exams that you can take and what those exams mean. So if you go out to the Google machine and you type that in, it will bring you to that PDF file. What's interesting about that is there's not only the CompTIA exams you can take to renew your certification, there are also Cisco and Microsoft exams that you can take to renew your certifications. So that's an important consideration. Let's say you take your A+, now you want to take a Microsoft exam a year later and you pass that exam, you could possibly start the clock again for your A+ exam. So that's really good stuff. So that's all in that frequently asked questions file. I expect that frequently asked questions file will need to be updated by CompTIA because the FAQ is probably out of date at this point. So there's as I mentioned, there are Cisco exams. So Jeff in the chat room's asking, so with some of the Cisco certifications, yes, there are Cisco certifications that will renew your CompTIA certifications. Check that frequently asked questions file. It tells you the order. It tells you which have a higher hierarchy, a higher priority than the others. So you'll be able to go out there and check all of that. That's some good stuff out there that you'll be able to find. Well, let's go through some of the questions. Let me make sure the chat room, if we've got anything going so far, we can talk about, remind me about the flashcards later because I have some ideas about some of those things. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Here's one that came in. I think this speaks well to what we are learning in the A+ certification. The question is, what are the pros and cons of building your own desktop and laptop computers? So this is something from an A+ perspective, we almost feel empowered to be able to do this. We're learning about motherboards and power supplies and how they plug in, and we have to be able to install them and replace them. We have to be able to understand more about how they all work together, what type of video do we use, what type of storage options are available to us. And technically speaking, we could now build our own computer. So why would we want to, or why would we not want to build our own computer? And it certainly speaks to some of the things that we do with the A+. The idea, of course, and the question talked about, can I build my own desktop or laptop? Well, desktop, yes. Laptop, not quite so easy. Laptops are first very specialized motherboard types that are built. Ideally, if you ever open up a laptop and look at it, the motherboard has been built to fit in a very specific area because you have to fit batteries, you have to fit hard drives, or SSD storage, you have to fit memory, and you build every single laptop has a different motherboard type inside of it. So it's hard, you can't really buy a motherboard off the shelf and build your own laptop from that. So not quite as easy. With desktops, absolutely. And I put here mini desktops. I should have put that in quotes, but they have these really tiny little motherboards that you can use these days to put in a tiny little case. You've probably seen things like the Raspberry Pi that are very popular on the Linux side. You have the same type of thing for Intel-based systems that you can run Windows or run other operating systems on. Really nice to have, and you can put them in a tiny little container. Very, very useful to have that there. That's one of the nice pieces. So usually you're building a desktop. Now, why would you want to build your own desktop? Well, obviously, you would be able to get exactly the hardware you wanted. There would be no question. You could buy exactly the motherboard you wanted, exactly the memory you would like, be able to put in exactly the storage that makes sense for you. Should I do a RAID array or not? Yes, let's do one. Well, what type of hard drive should we use? What type of video should we use? Well, I want to do gaming, or I want to do some type of video editing. Let's get this type of video. And you build it to specification exactly. Now, I mentioned this, and this question actually has a lot to do with the 800 series exam. I'm going to step through the 800 series exam requirements near the end of this presentation today, and you'll see why this is so important to know. So not only is this interesting from, should I do this, but it's also interesting in that it's going to provide you with some valuable information that you can use on the 800 series exam, even though, of course, you can't take that exam yet, but you will. Another part about building your own computer, it's a lot of fun. You're putting things together, you're learning how to do it, you're building it out and watching, you're troubleshooting, because things don't always go exactly as you would like when you're building your own computer. Start troubleshooting those pieces. It is a lot of fun. Now, should I do that? Well, if your concern is cost, building your own computer is absolutely more expensive than buying something off the shelf. Off the shelf, there is bulk that these manufacturers are able to use to be able to create low-cost computer systems. You buying individual parts is going to cost you a lot more money. Same thing as if you were to add up individual parts of an automobile. If you bought just a window, if you bought just a seat, if you bought just the steering wheel, if you bought just the tires, and then you put it all together yourself. Well, I think once upon a time I saw an article that said, I think this is the Department of Creating Statistics that come out of thin air, but they say it would cost 2 or 3 times the amount of the car if you were to buy it that way. Well, altogether, costs hardly the same cost, much less. So that's one of the challenges you have when you're buying your own one, is it could be costly, and your own support department. You are responsible if drivers aren't working. You are responsible if there's some incompatibility in there between these two systems. So that's one of the things you have to think about when building your own system. And you will have to think about this on the 800 series exam, because some of the questions they ask on the A+ 800 series have to do with building the right system or specifying the right kind of system for particular tasks. What type of system should you get for someone who is simply doing web browsing and email? What type of system should you get for someone who's doing video editing? Those are going to be very different systems. What's going to be different about them? That's what you'll need to know for your A+ exam on the 800 series when that finally comes in the October timeframe. Let's go to our next pop question that we have here. Is you want to upgrade the video since we're building our own system. You want to upgrade the video on your computer to the fastest possible speed available. What type of adapter card interface would you expect to find on this new video adapter? So now we're interested in finding more information about adapter interfaces. What type? Well, we want the fastest available for our video. You can go out to, don't answer in the chat room. No answering. We have to go put this in here. Go to vote.rs, VOT.rs, and use number 18821. I'm going to go to that myself. Let's flip over to this next one. Have it load up. Boy, look at that. 10 of you have already said PCIe. PCIe, PCI Express. Your choices are PCI ISA, PCI Express, and FireWire. Look at everybody piling on. This question did not fool anyone. And good for you indeed, because this question itself is relatively straightforward. If you had to find the fastest bus available, the fastest interface type that was available, it would be PCI Express. And especially for video cards need a lot of bandwidth. They need a lot of throughput. There's a lot of data going back and forth to these video cards that we have these days. And you have the video cards in your motherboard, they're okay. If you want something that's a high-end video card, you need a lot of throughput. You're going to need an interface that will provide you with a lot of throughput, and PCI Express provides you with that throughput. So most of you that have answered this one, absolutely correct for that PCI Express. Good for you. There's one of those things that that we will have there. This is one of the nice things about putting together your own system is you get to spec that out in the PCI Express. You get to choose your own graphics card and have all of those things available for you. So the PCI Express bus is the correct answer. None of you were fooled. 26 of you had it right on the money. Let's now move into a networking question. I got this question this week. I'll flip over to my presentation. There we go. And the question is, when would you want a static IP address? And when would you want a dynamic IP address? Now, obviously, when you're configuring a Windows device, a Linux device, a Mac OS X device, an Android, an iOS, you've got exactly the settings you need to configure your internet connection. Every single one of those has exactly the same type of requirements for configuring your TCP/IP network settings. Now, you have to be able to put in auto, which would be a dynamic IP address. You would like your computer to automatically find a DHCP server somewhere in the world and provide you automatically with an IP address. Fantastic. Then I would say the vast majority of the devices that we use today are set up to do exactly that. Mainly because we move around so much, especially on our mobile devices. If you've got your mobile device, you're walking from place to place, you want to be able to use the wireless network as it moves from wireless network to wireless network. Assuming you have rights and permissions to get onto that network, it will give you an IP address, and you can then use that IP. Our computer, same type of thing. We're grabbing a laptop, we're taking it with us. We're grabbing our tablet, we're taking it with us. Those devices generally are set up to gather a dynamic IP address. So I would almost ask the question differently of, when would you not want to use a dynamic IP? When would there ever be a scenario where you would not want to use a dynamic IP? And I'm also going to turn it around. When would you ever configure your network to not provide people with IP addresses? When would you require people to use static IP addresses? Which indeed on the A+ exam is the type of thing they're asking about. What type of thing can we do? And what type of thing can we use to manage that? What types of things are make that important? Why is static so interesting to us? I have two firewalls. I have two routers on my network. I have two DHCP servers. These are all-in-one devices. These all-in-one devices, of course, are the devices you use to connect to the internet, have a wireless access point inside of them. They have a router inside of them. There's a DHCP server inside of them. There's a lot of functionality. Mine has an IPS inside of it, and it has a DHCP server inside of it that I can configure. Now, I have two of these. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but I have one that's connected to the internet and one that is not connected to the internet that I use for some other purposes. So on my wireless access points that I have, one of them provides a method to get the IP address automatically from my ISP. I've configured my device to get its IP address dynamically. Now, this is the device that's talking out to my ISP, and I would guess practically everybody these days that's talking out to an ISP is doing this automatically. Your ISPs would like it to be automatic. When I first got my IP address configuration, when I first got my cable modem configuration, this was 10 years ago or so in my home office. They brought it in. It was Comcast, but Comcast did not do their own internet access at the time. It was At Home. Some of you may remember that company. They were ultimately acquired, I think, or went out of business, one of those two. At Home was the provider that gave me the modem. And they said, you can't use dynamic. We don't have a DHCP. Here is your assigned IP address for your internet access. Wow, okay, so I had to go into my router and choose use static IP address and type in the IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway. And I did all of that, and guess what happened? Didn't work. Didn't work at all. Was not working. Wasn't correct at all. Well, of course, me being the kind of person I am, grabbed my network analyzer, plugged it into the link, and saw information going back and forth over that connection. First, I saw a lot more information I probably should have seen, but at the time we were very early in the age of cable modems. I plugged it in and saw that the IP addresses that I was seeing communicate that would normally be local subnet communication was not the subnet they gave me. So here was the problem. They gave me an IP address and yet configured my connection to be on a completely different subnet. I'll never be able to talk. Now, try telling the first line tech support at the at-home headquarters that, oh, I've got an IP address, but I'm on the wrong subnet. You know what the first answer is going to be? Let's see if the chat room can tell me. What's the first thing that at home requested that I do to resolve this issue of being on the wrong subnet? You can almost guess. Please reboot your router. Yes, we got the right answer. Reboot your router. Restart it. Turn it off and turn it back on. That's, of course, because that's certainly going to move me to another subnet. So I did this. Oh, okay, let me turn it off and turn it back on. Okay, did that. Now what? Of course, didn't touch it. It's not gonna work. That's not. So I finally explained what I did. No, I'm seeing this. Here's what's happening. You kind of had to talk through the scenario, and they said, "Oh yeah, you're absolutely incorrect. Let's do some things." Click, click, click. They changed it on their side and it was on the right subnet. That's an occasion where you would have to use a static IP address because your provider says that's the way it works. From a security, and I use quotes on this, from a security perspective, there is a line of thought that disabling DHCP on your wireless access point is a security method. And in your A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus exams, this is mentioned, that one of the things people think about when they think about security on wireless access point is doing things like disabling SSID broadcasts so nobody can see your access point name in a list, or disabling the IP address to be dynamically assigned. So when you connect to the wireless network, you won't get an IP address. Obviously, it's not a security feature. That's just that is security through obscurity. You're just making it a little bit more hard to get onto that network, a little bit more difficult to get onto that wireless network, but it's not going to be hard for anybody knowledgeable like you and me to pull up our Wireshark, to pull some packets out of the air and see what IP addresses are going back and forth. It keeps out the honest people, in other words, and that's not the people we want to keep out. We want to keep out the bad people. But there are occasions where perhaps there are certain machines that you want to always have a certain IP address. For instance, on my network, you can see that this is the one that is disabled. I have disabled my DHCP server. I have a 10-dot network that I use here. If this was turned on, it would be providing IP addresses from 10.1.10.2 through 10.1.10.254. And you can't see that at all, can you? Here we go. 10.1.10.2 through 10.1.2.254. There, it's a little better. So when you are looking, and I have mine disabled, use routers as DHCP server, so this won't send out a DHCP response. I have another DHCP server on my network that does do this, but it only has a range from 10.1.10.2 to 10.1.10, I think 100 or 99, somewhere in there. I have a printer on my network that provides printing for both Windows and Mac systems in my network. Well, one of the challenges I have is not always will the operating system find the printer automatically by name. Now, Windows has a problem with this for some reason for my particular type of printer. And the way that I've resolved that is I've given my printer a static IP address. So I know always my printer is going to be 10.1.10.199. Now, I'm fixing the symptom and not the problem. I recognize this. Bad tech. Bad. I'll slap my hand. No. You should have fixed the issue of the machine not being able to find the printer properly. I've only got so much time in the day, people. We have to get this thing fixed and move on. I got to print. We have printer issues. Those have to be resolved quickly. So my answer to that particular printing problem was not to resolve the issue with Windows or with the operating system I was using. Instead, I assigned a static IP address to the printer, and anytime I need to print to it, I simply point the operating system to that particular IP address, and Bob's your uncle. I'm able to print. Everybody else in the house is able to print. So the world is good. The world is smiling. The sun is shining. The printer is working. And I'm usually sometimes during the week, I'm away from my office. I'm traveling. I'm on an airplane. I'm in another city, spending the night somewhere. The worst kind of call you want to get is we have an assignment due tomorrow and we can't print. So I wanted to make that as bulletproof as possible. Static IP addresses did it for me. And I thought that question that came in this week was pretty good because that mentioned pretty well what we're able to do with that. Okay, let's go to the next segment that we have, which is TMA, which is this month's acronym. Let's find out what this month's acronym is and what it stands for. So another question for what we are doing. What is an SSD? The acronym this month, SSD, go to vote.rs 97783. Your options that are available to you are system software distribution, solid state drive, static software design, and serial system designation. So you may recall, if you look at the CompTIA A+ exam requirements in the back, are these many acronyms that are in the back. SSD is one of those acronyms that you need to know. And I would say most of you have got this one down at this point. Very quickly, we got 25 people have said, yes, solid state drive. SSD is solid state drive. I bet if I asked that question 5 years ago, I don't know if we'd get the same answer. SSDs have been around for a long time, of different types. There are different kinds of SSDs that we've been using over the years. Now, only recently in the past number of years have we really seen the consumer market take off for flash-based SSDs. And these are fantastic storage mechanisms to be able to have a very fast responses of that. SSD drives are phenomenal. And one of the questions that came in is this question. Let's slide back to our presentation. What is the future for hard drives? Is SSD going to kick it out or what? Asks Carl. Well, Carl, let's find out if SSDs are going to kick it out. And one of the questions is, should I use an SSD? This is a pretty good question. We're right at that time where SSD costs are coming way down. And if you've ever used a solid state drive in your computer, you will think that the world has changed immediately. If you are replacing a traditional hard drive and you put in an SSD, you would think you got a brand new computer, because hard drive, the input and output to a hard drive, to any storage device, is generally speaking one of the slowest things in your computer. Your CPU is having to wait to retrieve information from the drive or write information to the drive. If you can read it faster and write it faster, then your system's going to be faster overall. So it makes perfect sense. And I'm going to talk in the chat room. People are already saying, oh, but SSDs, they die out. They're no good. They only last so long. Let's talk about that in just a second, because that's an important consideration and one we should think about, especially these days. But to answer this question from Carl regarding kicking it out, I would like to point to a couple of articles. One is Facebook that has been using SSDs for quite some time now. When you are on Facebook and you're doing whatever you're doing, it's SSD access to provide you with that type of speed. The other article I put here, this is from Google planning to use SSD storage in their servers. Boy, you've got 16 gig and 32 gig chips that they were using in that. This is just an article from 2008 that was in Information Week. They've been using solid state drives for a long time at Google. Well, of course, when you have quarterly revenue of, what is it, 12 million, 12 billion, 20 billion, whatever they're making every quarter for revenue, yeah, you can put some SSDs out there. Why not? That makes sense for me. They've been using it a long time. So now the consumer market is catching up to this. Obviously, in a business environment, SSDs cost a little more, but if you had a business case where you could save money or make your particular services more attractive to people because of the speed, you can justify the cost. You can buy those at a very high speed. But these days, you can use SSDs. You can stripe them or put them in a RAID array, and you are really getting some high performance. There's a lot of interesting performance capabilities, things you can look at on YouTube where people have put these together and they've measured it, and you can see the differences between them. Now, one of the questions that came up in the chat room was, yeah, but these SSDs, they don't last very long. And this is a bit of a misnomer. It's a bit of a false a false idea that has been floated out there based on some of the limitations that you have with flash-based SSDs, which are primarily what we use in our consumer technologies, are these flash-based SSDs. The flash-based SSDs have a limit to how many times you can write data to a particular area, a particular section of that SSD. You can only write it X number of hundreds of thousands of times. And after that point, you can't write to that area anymore. Now, there are technologies within the drive itself that will write to different areas. So you're never writing to any one particular area all the time. There's also functionality built into your operating systems that don't do things like perform a disk defragmentation exercise. There's no reason to do a defragmentation on an SSD. You don't have that same problem with time and space that you do with heads going across a physical moving platter that is spinning. With SSDs, you access it and you're there. So the operating systems have to be smart enough to use the SSD in a way that makes sense. So that's one of the things you have to think about. But the latest versions of SSDs, even if you put them into a device and you wrote to them constantly over and over and over again and wrote through them, in some of the SSDs that are out there, it would take tens of years to ever hit the point where the manufacturer says you can't write to the SSD. So generally speaking these days, we say that these consumer-based SSDs will be too small to worry about by the time you have even coming close to worry about these not working anymore. You're able to have the SSD you have today, which is 128 gig, 256 gig, even 512. Even there's some that are, of course, larger than that. But in 3 years, those are going to be tiny little sizes. You'll want to swap out your SSD anyway. And it's probably the case if you look at the numbers. I saw one number that says you'd have to wait 90-something years before you're ever going to get to a point where you can't write to the SSD anymore. Now, there are other considerations. SSDs are a very complex type of storage mechanism. There are questions about, does the SSD get slower to write over time? And unfortunately, we won't know until we've been using them for a while. You know, they want to know, in 10 years, will this be as quick to write as it will be today? We got to wait 10 years. I don't know. We just aren't even sure. So that's one of those things. That's one of the nice parts about SSDs, though, is we don't have to worry about it. I have SSDs in the device that is providing you with this presentation. The laptop that I use has an SSD in it, so I can take it on the road. I can use it anywhere. I can always pick it up and move it. That's one of the things I cringe whenever I see somebody grabbing a laptop with a hard drive. They're picking it up and moving it around. I'm thinking, careful. Put that down nicely. There's a moving platter spinning inside of there with a tiny head that's now bouncing up and down on that particular device. That's one of the challenges. But with an SSD, there's no bouncing, there's no moving. It's all completely solid state. So I can pick up my laptop, move it around. I have no concern that I'm going to crash my drive that way. So very, very nice to have that capability there with those pieces. Very, very useful for that. Now, of course, an SSD still has challenges. It still has faults that can occur. It's still a piece of electronics. Because you have an SSD doesn't mean that you can get away with not backing up. Always have a backup. Your SSDs can fail because they are a piece of technology. There's nothing out there that is built so bulletproof that it will never fail. There's always going to be a failure of technology. So always, always, always make sure you back up your systems, whether you're using a traditional hard drive or not. I have another question for you. Let's do another pop quiz that we have here. Question is, what kind of device can monitor power changes, check cable continuity, and maybe even determine if a fuse is blown? So those are 3 different things you can do with this particular device. Your options will be out at vote.rs, the number 39537. So if you're trying to determine if your drive is working or not, you want to see if it's getting power, maybe this kind of device can check and monitor power changes, or check cable continuity, or determine if a fuse is blown. And if we go out and look at what you folks think the answer is, what device can monitor power changes, check cable continuity, and determine if a fuse is blown? Oh, we got people saying, there's a few of these things. This one's a little more tricky. Got a few more. Didn't trick everybody, though, it seems. This is circuit tester, power supply tester, multimeter, a post-diagnostic card, or a power analysis cable fusometer or fusometer, depending on how scientific you are, since I just kind of made that name up. So 2 of you picked the device that doesn't exist, the power analysis cable fusometer. That's the challenge. But 21 of you already said, oh, yeah, that's multimeter. Easily. Now, power supply tester can absolutely test power. Power supply tester can't really help you with cable continuity. Might be able to check if a fuse is blown offhand, but not directly. Circuit tester, not so much. I want to check cable continuity and be able to determine if a fuse is blown and monitor power changes. A circuit tester can tell you if the circuit is working or not, but generally can't monitor power changes. You want a multimeter. They can do all those things all at the same time. Well, not the same time, but you can flip a switch and check your power changes, flip a switch, check your cable continuity, flip a switch, and check to see if a fuse is blown. So a nice capability. If you don't have a multimeter, you should. I keep one in my desk here. My children have stolen it to check batteries. That's one of the nice things about having it around. Once you start to use a multimeter, and use it for everything. Let's check to see how our batteries are. Let's check to see if that power plug in the wall is operating properly. Let's see if we can, this cable, if pin 1 actually connects to pin 1 on the other side. Very, very nice. You got to get a multimeter. They're like 10, 15 bucks. Go to Amazon. Even the least expensive, you can get a nice analog. I use a digital one because I think it looks cooler. Probably the analog's probably a lot more accurate, but I want digital. It's one of those things. But for what we do, we're just checking continuity. I just need a roundabout. Am I close to 120 volts on that power connector? I don't have to know to the 100th of a volt, those types of things. So it's important to know. So some of the questions in the chat room that are coming through, let's answer some of those before we continue on. On the A+ exam, are there questions about what certain acronyms might mean? And that's one of the things you have to think about when dealing with the A+ exams. There's a lot of acronyms on the A+ exam. Have you ever seen that? There is in the back of the A+ exam requirements, every acronym you would need to know. They really spell it out nicely. So if you have, we'll look at the exam objectives in just a moment. There is, I don't know, pages and pages of acronyms if we were to look at it, that we'd find that information. So that's one of those things that you will want to view, you'll want to look at when you look at your exam requirements, both for your 700 series and your 800 series, over what types of things you will need to know from an acronym perspective. Now, one thing that you don't have to worry so much about is memorizing every single one of them, because as you use these things, as you learn about hard drives, you'll learn about SSDs, you'll know what SSD is. So when you see in your big list, SSD, already know that one. You can just go through the list, check them off. Check off every one of those acronyms that you have to know. There's a lot of pages of them. And I use flashcards for them as well. In fact, I should put my flashcards out for people to be able to use, because I just went through the whole list and put them in a flashcard. There is a open source flashcard system called Anki, A-N-K-I, I think it is. And let me see if I can find the Anki website here real quick. What's nice about this is an open system for flashcards. Here it is. Let me show this to you. You can find it at ankisrs.net. And Anki, there are, as you can see, downloads for Windows, Mac, Linux, FreeBSD, iPhone, Android, a lot of different systems. Now, on some of these, you have to pay. On the iPhone, for instance, it's a paid application, but it's not too much, a couple bucks, $3, whatever it happens to be. And you can take the decks that you've created and pull them right into your mobile device. The Windows, the Mac, OS 10, those are absolutely free. Load them up, try them out, do things with it. Really, really useful to have the Anki program. That is at ankisrs.net. Someone will be nice enough to do that, put that in there in the chat room. That would be super awesome, so that you could see ankisrs.net. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, so you're able to see that too. So it's a good question. Flashcards can really help, especially if you're trying to learn those acronyms. There's certain things that are useful to know about, and just add it to the list. What I've done, I've got an acronym list for my decks I've also got one for A+ topics, so I can go through a number of the topics that are there. Thank you, Aldo. Thank you, Dunnick, for adding that to the chat room. Okay, continuing on with this party that we've got going on, I would like to go to the next question we have, which is kind of a loaded question, I think. But sometimes I have loaded questions in my list. The question is, where can I find some good sample test sources? Now, I want to talk about this just a bit. Matt asks a question that I get a lot. This is a question we get a lot. Where can I get good sample test sources? And the chat room's right on it. The first thing they say is CompTIA website. There is 100 questions out there you can take right now. And those are very, very, very good questions. Those are exceptional questions, in fact. But then you go through the first 100, and then what do you get? There was a conversation going on ProfessorMesser.com. We have the chat that's at the bottom of the screen. It's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People are always in there talking back and forth. And somebody said, I have a question that talks about understanding the exact IRQ that was coming through a link, or something very, very esoteric and something very old. And I always like to ask, where are you getting this question? Why are you memorizing IRQs? Because we haven't had that on the A+ exam for about 6 years now. You don't have to know the exact IRQ of something. You need to know what IRQs are. You need to understand why an interrupt request is important. Understand how it works in the big scheme of things. I don't know why I'm moving my hands like that, but how it works, it must work like that, the big scheme of things. But the question, I asked, where'd you get this from? And it gave me a link that took me to a list of questions from the 220-301 exam. The 301. This is a really, really old exam. These questions are floating around the internet. They're not very good. And even the ones that try to be up to date are not well written. I've seen some of these questions. You should be able to look at a question and know immediately what they're asking in the question and be able to go through the answers they give you and absolutely know what the answer is. If you know the topic, there should be no question. But unfortunately, people will throw this out and 2 of the answers could be correct. These are poorly written questions. It's one of the things I really have a problem with when looking at those kinds of things. Now, one of the challenges that I have is with those questions. And even somebody in the chat room said, no, the A+ exam, I ran the same thing. Not my experience. The A+ exams that I've taken the 600 and the 700 series at this point, all of them. And the questions are right on the money. If you know the material, it's obvious from the answers what they are. They are very, very well written. They're almost exactly the same type of cadence or same type of style that you would get on the CompTIA website. Now, that may have been updated since I took mine. I don't know. That was my experience taking the exam. One place you can go to get really, really good questions is my friends at GTS Learning. This is a group of folks that I met with in London when I was over there for the CompTIA conference in last November. And we talked about some of the things that they have. All of their materials are CompTIA approved. They send them through a series of processes where CompTIA looks at their materials, checks them out, and they're fantastic. And you may have heard me talk about GTS Learning because their books, both their ebooks and their printed books, are set up with not only the materials and the information you need to understand for your exam, they've embedded my videos right in them. So if you're learning about memory, right in the middle of your document that you're reading on your screen is my memory video. You can see it right there and click the button and play it. If you're on the printed book, they put QR codes next to it. You simply scan it with your mobile device, and now you're watching the memory video on your mobile device. Pretty nifty. Now, what they've done, though, is they've taken a lot of the things. Maybe you don't need a book. Maybe you don't need the videos. Maybe you just need some exam practice. And so they've taken some exam questions they have that they've looked at, that CompTIA's looked at. I've looked at some of them, and they've gone through the list to know what's there. If you go to professormesser.com/exam practice, it will bring you to the freestyle exam practice page. So if you don't need to buy the full freestyle with all the things that come with it, and freestyle is both the book, it's videos, it's tests, it's everything. Maybe you just need tests. And if you go to the website for the freestyle exam practice test, you can just by the exam practice test. I'll choose my country. Let's go to the United States of America. I'll choose that one. It'll give me a price. So in the US, my A+ practice exam, $69, $45 for Network Plus, $45 for Security Plus. And there's some nice things to have there. This is a link from my site, so they even stuck my face in there. It said, oh, you're coming from Professor Messer's site. There's a different price for you versus other people that you get. And they're a sponsor of what we do here at Professor Messer. So I like to make you aware of this. So if you're looking for really good exam questions, check out GTS Learning. See what they have available. See what their options are and some of the things that they have there. They have a big explanation on their page, and they can send you a 10-question demo so you can try it for yourself. You tell me if it's good or not. You try it out. If you don't like it, don't get it. But there's a good example where you can just plug in and get some samples right there. It's nice to have that available. It's a trusted group of people that I know about. I've looked at the materials myself, and it's something that you can try for free. So something that we also appreciate here at Professor Messer is having GTS Learning there that can also help support what we're doing with our free videos and making them available to you. You can find out more at professormesser.com/exam practice. So make sure you have a look at that as well. Let's continue on our journey. I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour. We're going to go a little over. This is one of those months where we are going over that piece. To hear that piece. So let's go to these questions, though, that I get. I get two types of questions. I get questions about how does an SSD work? What is an IRQ? What is RAID? And then I get other questions about the exam itself. I don't need to know about the questions. I need to know about I have questions about the questions. I have other things I'd like to know about. So one of the questions I got this month was, what can a person do to gain experience after receiving an A+ certification? Barbara asked this. Now, this is one of these things that a lot of people don't think about when they are going through the certification process, is that you have to have more than just a certification. Certifications are incredibly important, but I've said this on a number of study groups. I mention this all the time. You need three things. You need certifications. It lets an employer know that you have a knowledge and a set of interest in a particular kind of technology. Now, you have to think about what that's going to be. You have to look at the jobs that people are offering. You have to see what certifications they're looking for and make sure you have those certs. The other one is some formal training, some formal education. You need to have something like a degree of some kind. It can be a technical degree. It can be a 4-year college. It could be a 2-year degree. It needs to be some type of formal education. That's extremely important when people are looking at a resume. They're looking at a CV. They're trying to understand what your experiences have been for learning. And an employer isn't necessarily, and this is coming from somebody who's hired people before to do these types of jobs. An employer isn't necessarily looking to see if your formal education matches exactly this job. I'm a poster child for that. I have a degree in business management. My first job out of college was delivering printer cables and installing hard drives. Had nothing to do with business management. But they looked at this and said, oh, you have a degree. That means you're trainable. That means you're smart enough that I could teach you other things. That's what they're looking for. That's the value. Now, of course, it would be nice if you had a formal training that was close to what you were going to do. You know, political science doesn't necessarily match exactly back to technology. Business management sort of did. Those types of things are important, but the formal education is good. And the third one, which is what Barbara's asking about, is what can I do to get experience? Because that's the third leg. You want to have the certs. You want to have the formal education. You need to have experience. But when you're first looking for that first job, it is that ultimate catch-22. I don't have experience. Well, I can't hire you. Well, if you don't hire me, I'm not going to have any experience. This is the conundrum. This is the problem. And it's a challenging problem. Now, one of the things that are useful in the United States is a little bit different in the UK. There are apprenticeship programs through the government. You can be an apprentice. I can't even speak today. You can, in the United States, we don't have something that's formal through the government that you can have that type of scenario. But there are a lot of programs in the United States and elsewhere around the world where you can volunteer. And volunteering is a great way instead of an apprenticeship, instead of going through an internship, instead of something formal, you can talk to a organization like your library. My daughter's during the summer, she is volunteering at a library. That's one of the ways that there is a requirement that she has for what she's doing in school to get a certain number of hours to do that. Hers is a library. Why couldn't yours also be at a library, but it's taking care of their computers? What about another type of charity? Maybe a nonprofit organization. They love for people to help them. And usually there are people already there that are doing this type of thing that will help you learn that piece of it. The apprenticeships that they have in the United Kingdom are pretty interesting. They have some links in the chat room for some of those. You can even look through that if you're outside the UK to understand what they're doing there. Maybe apply some of those ideas to what we're doing in the United States. It also helps if you know somebody who's doing this type of thing, who has in a role where they can bring you in just for a half day here, a half day there. Anything that you can put on your resume, on your curriculum vitae that says, I have done this for this organization. And you list out what you did. Employers want to know not what your job title was. They don't want to know necessarily what your job requirements were. What did you do? What projects were you involved in? Oh, well, I updated, they had 50 computers and I had a project during the summer to update the security on all of them. We audited. We determined what we needed to do to get all of them up to the latest security. We created a project plan. We pushed out some of the updates automatically. We built a Microsoft update server. So these things, an employer sees that and wow. If you just put, well, we update security on a bunch of machines, you're selling yourself short. You did a lot to get the security update on all those machines. So keep that in mind. Your experience doesn't necessarily have to be a paid position. In fact, if you're just getting started, it's a great way to do it. So there's a lot of volunteer websites that people have in the chat room. I'll grab some of those and put them in the show notes as well. I got I don't know if this was in all caps or not, but it sure felt like it. Marquise asks, what's a good study plan to prepare for the exam if you're going to take this exam on July 24th? Now, as we are recording this is July the 21st. So Marquise has today's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So early next week, Marquise is taking A+ exam. So one of the things I always tell people to do, and if you haven't done this already, you need to do this. And I say it over and over and over. For those of you that have followed me, you are tired of me saying this, but I would not be saying it if I wasn't running into people that are still asking me, hey, I'm taking my exam next week. Do they ask about SSDs? How could you have gone through this much learning about the A+ topics and have no idea what's on the exam? So the first thing you should do is go out to CompTIA.org. When you get to CompTIA.org, there is a certification section. Click on it. The certification section will take you to an area that deals just with certifications. Under Get Certified, choose the exam you're interested in. I'm interested in the A+ exam. And it takes you to the A+ page. On the right side of the screen, it says, Get Started Now. See what the exam covers. You want to do this. Let's see what the exam covers. I'm going to click that, and it brings up a list of training objectives. And when we look at these training objectives, one of the things it's going to do is ask you at a bare minimum for your name. It's going to ask you for an email, and you're going to type those things in, and it's going to ask you for a country. At a bare minimum, that's what you have to put in, are those pieces. And I'm going to put mine in. I realize you can't see this on the screen up there, so let's put this up. And then choose the tests that you want to put in there. I'm going to choose the A+ exam. If you go to the Google machine and type in CompTIA exam objectives, it will take you to this page as well. And in the chat room, they're right. I probably should just put a link at the top of I'm going to put a link at the top of my video index for this page. The chat room is setting me straight. So you can also answer some of these other things if you'd like to or not. Just click Get Exam Objectives. For the A+ certification, you have a few options. You have the 700 series, both in English and in Spanish. And you have the 800 series. Don't worry about the 800 right now. As we mentioned, you can't take that one until October. So you can look at it, be interesting. But if you're taking your exam on the 24th, go out and click the 701 and click the 702. I'm going to click the 701. And I'm just going to choose it. Since I'm running Chrome, it brings it up right on my screen. You don't have to have a separate PDF reader. And here's the exam objectives. Tells you what's covered on the exam. And then it goes through every single section of the exam and tells you exactly what you will be asked about. Every single thing you will be asked about that. Here it is. The CompTIA exams tell you everything that you're going to need to know about for the exam. They tell you, it's fantastic. There are a lot of other exams in the industry, I'm looking at you, Microsoft, that tell you practically nothing about the details of the exam. They give you a very high level. Yeah, you need to know how to do this. Okay, how do I do that? Well, we're not going to tell you, but you need to know how to do that. These are very different. These will tell you exactly, you understand what hyper-threading is. You need to understand dual-core, triple-core, and quad-core processors and what they are. You need to understand what an on-chip cache is, and specifically an L1 and an L2. Print this out and just start checking them off. Check off what's there. So if you've never gone to this process, you've never grabbed the objectives, if you've never looked at this, you will have no idea what you're about to be asked on the exam. Look at this. This is fantastic. So be sure to go out to CompTIA's website and download this. They will tell you exactly the memory information you need to know. They'll tell you exactly the hard drive storage. They tell you exactly what operating system you should know about. People are still asking me, hey, they ask about, should I expect to see a Windows 2000 question on the exam? Well, according to the exam objectives, and we look through the operating systems, we'll look through the list. Let's see, it's in section 3. There we go. Section 3 says operating system, unless otherwise noted, Microsoft Windows 2000, XP Professional, XP Home, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's listed right in the exam objectives. You could possibly be asked a question on Windows 2000. Now, I understand these days they generally don't. They generally stay with the latest ones. Windows 2000 is not part of the 800 series, but they could. It's on the exam objectives. You're expected to know about it, and it's absolutely part of the videos that I offer. So if you're going to take that exam on the 24th, grab the exam objectives. Another thing that I'll give you, I told you about some of those questions. Get a few. So somebody did say they got a few Windows 2000 questions on the exam. So they're still asking them. Know your Windows 2000. It's part of the videos. It's part of the exam objectives. You should know it. If you're taking this on the July 24th, download those exam objectives. Print them out on a piece of paper. Paper is something made from dead trees, for those of you keeping track of these things. And you use a writing utensil. They look something like this. This is a pen. We used to use these to write on paper with. There's also pencils that are long wooden sticks that we would use to write on the paper. Check them off. Physically use that as a checklist. And then before you go on the exam, you've got a list of things. Oh, I've checked off all these. I know these. Oh, here's some different topics that I can go through. And we can look at and just reference those prior to walking in the door. It's a good cram session is to have something like that there. Okay. The next question, then I'm going to go back through some of the questions from the chat room. Is there an area of the test that give most test takers the most trouble? Is there an area of the test? I can tell you, after doing these study groups since September or so of last year, there are certain questions that are always asked of me. For the A+ exam, the bane of people's existence seems to be CPU sockets. I'm not sure why. Well, I do know why that is. Let's look at this a moment. I'm going to go back to, since we have the exam objectives right here, let's go back to our exam objectives, scroll back up. We went right by them earlier. We have the different exam pieces in here. I think they're really right here. We have sockets in here. I could just do a find, right? Processor sockets. See how easy that was? They don't even give you a lot of detail in the exam requirements. You need to know what processor sockets are there. That is the extent of what they tell you on the 701 series, 701 exam. I think the 702 may have something different in there. If you grab a book for A+, I've seen a book that had 2 pages of just listing hundreds of CPUs and the sockets associated with them. And I get questions all the time like, okay, do I need to know what an Athlon, what's the Athlon socket type? What are those pieces? Here's my recommendation. I'm going to go crazy here. I'm going to tell you something about processor sockets that I mean this sort of tongue in cheek, but I sort of mean this seriously. Don't study them. Don't study processor sockets. No, processor sockets, don't need them. Throw them away. Not interested in learning all that. If you think that you're going to sit there and try to learn every processor socket and you're going to be tested on that, which is unlikely, because that one bullet is one tiny piece of an entire mini section that's a part of a larger section of which there are 5 or 6 sections full, you may not even get a socket question on your exam. It would be nice to know the difference between a ZIF and a slot. Know very broad ideas. Don't even bother memorizing more than that. Don't do it. You are wasting valuable study time. I would rather see you completely ignore detailed socket information than going through and having to miss something else that you could have learned. That at the end of the day is actually going to be more important for you. You don't have to go to that level of minutia on the A+ exam, that level of detail. You don't have to know it. You have to know a very broad area. Unfortunately, a lot of the books you find have lists and lists and lists of sockets. In my videos, I think I listed 5 or 6. Here's some that are pretty popular when the 701 exam came out. These are good to know. Give you an idea of when they're used. That's about it. So think about that when you're going through all of those pieces of detail. If I was to do Network Plus, I'll probably have the same question on the Network Plus study group next week. And the answer there is subnetting. Just don't even do it. If you're in the weeds, skip it completely. You're much better off learning other things that are going to be on your exam. Know the idea, know when you would use it. If you get a subnetting question, you might get it wrong. But if you already spent all that time studying other things, you'll get 5 others right. That's my idea. Now, ideally, you would learn everything. I get that. But kind of giving you some ideas. Think about that in your head. Maybe you'll use it, maybe you won't. Maybe you think it's a horrible idea. That's fine too. I'm fine with that. But maybe it's something that can save you some time and gain you an advantage on the exam when you take it. Question from Antonio is, should we start studying for the new A+ test if I'm new at studying for the current A+? That's a good exam question. That's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? I told you the A+ 800 series is coming out in October. That's what CompTIA has said. October. I have no personal knowledge of this other than what I read. So they said October. We're going with that. It's coming out in October. Sounds good to me. Let's do that. Now, the problem, of course, is which one now do I take? If I haven't really started on the 700 series, should I take it? We now know, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the 700 series exam is one that will be available until August of 2013. We've got a year. So my recommendation is go ahead and start studying. Go ahead and go through the 700 materials, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Very quickly in the chat room before those go by, question was, do I have plans for videos for the 800 series? Absolutely. Already working on them, already in production, already getting those things done. There will be 800 series, very specific, all updated exam videos for the 800 series, completely redone. Yes, absolutely. High definition, the whole thing. Absolutely. They're going to be fabulous. You'll love them. Another question was, is there a bridge exam for 801, 802? No, I've not seen any evidence there will be a bridge exam, and I can't imagine they do one. Why would you? You don't have different exams that you have to get any longer. When you are A+ certified, you're A+ certified. That's it. Your bridge exam, if you will, are the CEs that you have to get, or it's the renewal that you have to do sometime in the next 3 years. That's the bridge. There's no longer separate exam versions. Oh, I passed the 701, 700 series. Oh, I passed the 600 series. Oh, I passed the 300 series. You don't have to keep taking them to get the latest series, because now, whether you take the 800 series or the 700 series when it's available, you can take both of those, you get the same certification. If you pass the 800 exam and you pass the 700 exam, you look at the certifications for both of those, they look identical. So I don't expect there's going to be a bridge for those. I just don't think they're going to bother with that. Why would they at this point? So now let's say you're studying for the 700, but in your mind, you're thinking, I would really like to take the newest exam. And that's a good way to think. You should think about taking the latest certification that's out there. Fabulous idea. And fortunately, if we were to look at the requirements for the 800 series, you would see there is a lot of overlap A lot of the materials I have in my old videos, I'm simply copying over, kind of updating some text, making the graphics look better, probably speaking better in the videos. I'll make those, but a lot of it's going to be some of the old materials. A CPU today works exactly the same way a CPU worked 3 years ago. A memory module today works exactly the same a memory module worked 3 years ago. So of course, those things are going to be identical. So if you study for the 700 series, you're not wasting your time. Just don't waste your time on things that are not on the 800 exam. So let's quickly go through this. I did this in the March version of the A+ study group. If you go back to March, you'll be able to see that. And I'll put in the study notes exactly where that is. But you can see they've separated the exam into two different pieces. You've got a hardware, kind of how the hardware works in 801 and troubleshooting of that hardware. And then you've got operating systems and security and networking in the 802 exam. So they've now really separated them out quite nicely. In the exam, if we were to look at it, the hardware, they've updated the motherboards and connectors, not a lot. Solid state technologies are well represented. They updated the CPUs, kind of got rid of some of the old ones. They have a section where you have to pick the hardware if you're going to be doing graphics, video editing, virtualization, gaming, home theater, home server, etc., which is an interesting section. So that's an addition to what you have in the 700 series. Under networking, you need to know cabling and fiber. They go much more into subnetting in the A+ exam now. Ports and protocols. And there's a section on installing wireless routers. So you didn't lose anything here. If you study for the 701, you'll need to know some extra things for the 801, not wasting your time with those particular topics. For laptops, there's more hardware associated with it and some of the laptop features inside of it. For printers, you have to know, again, printer types and design, wired, and there's more wireless printing on there since we're doing more of that these days, and a lot more in printer maintenance. So for your 800 series, you'll need to know more. But by studying for the 700, you're not missing anything there either. And operational procedures are almost identical to the 700 series. There is a new section that talks about how would you deal in an environment when somebody's doing something that is inappropriate or that is prohibited. And unfortunately, that's just something we have to know these days to be able to manage what's happening on our networks. For the 802 exam, notice that Windows 2000 isn't here. So if you're studying for the 700, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm going to take the 800 exam, don't study Windows 2000, but everything else is here. XP, Vista, Windows 7. Still need to know them, still part of the exam. Windows 8 is not there. Windows 8 has not been released yet. It's released in October. What CompTIA did on the 700 series, if you recall, Windows 7 had just barely hit the street as well when the 700 series exam was out. A year later, CompTIA slipstreamed Windows 7 into the exam. Didn't change any of the numbers. Still the 700 series exam. They added Windows 7. It's entirely possible that a year from now, or any time, really, CompTIA can add Windows 8 into this mix. So don't be missed on anything like that. Plenty to see Windows 8, and it probably will appear somewhere on that exam because people are using Windows 8 out there. When it comes out, it's just going to come on people's machines. So you are going to need to know about that piece. The other sections, security, much bigger security section. So not losing anything by studying for the 700. There's a lot more about mobile devices on the 800 series exam. You're not losing anything by studying your 700 series device, 700 series exam. And troubleshooting. You're not losing anything there. Very similar to the 700 series. More on wired and wireless, some malware removal best practices, some laptop, a little more additional laptop stuff. Study the 700. Pretty much don't study Windows 2000, and you're going to be at least studying up for what you're going to need to know when that 800 exam hits. So that's something to keep in mind with what we are doing. We're coming to the end. I realize we're about 15 minutes over for what we are doing, but I'd like to give you an idea of some interesting links that are available. This particular link of the month showed up as part of a question. And the question was, what are your choices for diagnostic testing tools? Rob asks this. And I'm kind of the wrong guy to ask. My focus when I do the day job, when I do my other non-Professor Messer work, I'm doing primarily network security. So I'm not doing hands-on repair or removal of malware or that type of piece. I do that for fun in my lab. I have those things. We do it for our A+ exam. Certainly it's a position I've had in the past that I've done a lot of those types of things. but I don't do that now. And of course, troubleshooting tools change a lot over time. But I saw this question come in and I thought, I just heard someone talk about this who's very, very well read in the industry. If you've listened to Mike Tech Show, Mike has a podcast every week. This is a guy that is doing troubleshooting of people's networks, troubleshooting of people's computers, getting rid of the malware, and doing it day to day. He has a great podcast where he talks about his experiences, and you can find that at MikeNation.net. The link that I have at the top is bit.ly/MTS, Mike Tech Show, number 415. Or you can just Google Mike Tech Show number 415. This was a recent one he did on the 12th of this month, where he went into his bag and listed out all of the things that he uses from a hardware and software perspective that he carries around to do his real world work. So if you're trying to get an idea of what people are doing to be able to today, every day, help people's machines, fix their devices, fix their networks, you can find out exactly from the source what's going on. And it's a great podcast. Highly recommend you add that to your podcast list on Mike Tech Show. You can find it at MikeNation.net. And he has a live stream he does. He has some other podcasts that he does. It's a great thing to watch and participate in as well. Very, very entertaining and great, great information. He is in the trenches, and he can tell you exactly what's going on out there in the world. Well, we have come to near the end. Before we go too far into finishing this out, I'll go back to the chat room. Let's get the questions that people are sending in and coming through. We've kind of covered a lot of them through this list. We are another thing that we are looking at, of course, doing as we get our 800 series videos created and added to the Professor Messer website. I will, of course, let you know. So make sure you follow the Twitter and make sure you check the Facebooks and know that those things are going on. There is also the list again, as I mentioned, there's that list of frequently asked questions for the renewals for CompTIA. Someone was asking in the chat room where they can find that. Use that Google device out there to find your CompTIA exam renewal frequently asked questions FAQ. We'll probably find it and have that piece in there as well. So very, very useful to have there. Do I have a podcast? I do not currently have an active podcast. This would be kind of the closest thing that we do. But who knows what's going to happen in the future with that. And to keep track of what's going on with me, you can, of course, follow me on Facebook, professormesser.com/Facebook. If you're more of a Twitter person, you can say the professormesser.com/Twitter. There, if you want Google+, go to professormesser.com/Google+. That's a good, go to professormesser.com, try a few things. You'll find out where I am with those types of things. Again, I want to mention the exam practice materials from GTS Learning. You can find those at professormesser.com/exam practice. We appreciate their support of our live study groups. The next one is not going to be in July. I do this every month, don't I? I never update this slide. The next study group is next month. Why not? I have absolutely plans to do one in August, and now it's official. I'll do one in August as well. You can always go out to professormesser.com/calendar and find out what's going on with me. I hopefully will keep that updated. Send me an email and tell me, hey, mister, you're not updating your calendar like you said you were going to. And that's a good way to chastise me and embarrass me into doing that piece. And of course, we'll do one of these every month. We have a week from today at 12 noon, a Network Plus study group that we do. We'll do the same type of thing with our Network Plus type materials and be able to do that piece as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had another great set of questions from you. We could not do these study groups without your input, and we appreciate you joining and participating live and telling me the information you want to know. I think it helps everybody in the long run. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Professor Messer's A+ Study Group.